Well, hello, and welcome to another Content Gardener Marketing Update. My name's Gary Stockton. I'm the Content Gardener. I like to come on here when I've seen some really good content, some great things happening in the world of content marketing. There's always something happening. And the most recent thing that I've seen that's exciting is a new report from Andy Crestodina at Orbit, and Orbit's just come out with the 7th annual study of blogging trends, and a fascinating report. This is the 7th year that Andy's put this report together, and very impressive stuff. Lots of really interesting stats that I'd like to share with you today. So one of the first things that they draw attention to are posts are getting longer. Okay. If you are a blogger, if you're creating content on the internet, you'll know that the competition for placement in the search engines is getting more intense. It always helps to be first mover when you're creating that kind of content. But put your name, if you could just in the comments, if you're watching this live, either on LinkedIn or on YouTube, just let me know in the comments if you're blogging, if you're creating blog content. But 1 in 10 bloggers do things differently to get better results. And that's really the key takeaway here. They write 2,000 plus words per post. They add 7 visuals to their blogs. They write 7 different iterations of their headlines to stand out. And they work with multiple editors sometimes. I know that I'm kind of a solo player in that regard, but it always helps to get feedback from other people that are working with you on the team. And then collaborating with influencers. If you can amplify your blog content with influencers, you're doing remarkably well. And so that's one of the main key takeaways in this report. But it's taking longer to create blog content, and that's really one of the most important takeaways in this new report from Orbit. Is folks are not spending just a couple of hours and then pressing publish. They're spending sometimes almost 4 hours. The time now in 2020 to create a single blog post is now 3 hours 55 minutes. So a lot of time doing research, refining titles, finding the right visuals. Sometimes even putting video content into blogs is really helping people get further engagement. So you can see here really where that has evolved over time. No more spending less than an hour. Only 6% of people are doing that. So you can I should be updating my graphics as I'm sharing this with you. But you say 22% of bloggers right now are spending 2 to 3 hours on their content. So just devoting a greater amount of time to it. And I think this is really where people are seeing more of a payoff. And then also in this report, Orbit got expert feedback from 13 influencers and experts in the space, among them Brian Dean here of Backlinko, and Brian says the bar for content is higher than ever before, and it takes a ton of time to create a post that's legitimately unique, useful, and worth sharing. And I think there's something that we can all take away from that. If you are blogging and you're preparing something more than just, say, a listicle, or if it's obvious, if you're less obvious about trying to get SEO placement for a content, I think the content is more authentic. So people are setting out to write longer form content that is more helpful in nature. And so the average time now, the average length of a blog post is now 1,269 words. You can see really where that migration has taken place from 2014 all the way up to 2020 now at 1,269. So that's a 57% increase in the length of a blog post. And so what we're seeing now is people are spending more time in the posts and they're writing more words, but I think they're really choosing those words very carefully. And so you can see here, if I update the graphic here, where people are just not doing blog posts that are fewer than 500 words. And I think on the opposite end of the spectrum, very few are spending the amount of time to get 2,000 plus words. But these are really the posts that Andy and his team specialize in. I mean, I watched Andy did a time-lapse video doing research on a topic and writing to get placement for a blog. And I think he spent something like 7 hours on this thing. And I got to go back and check and see what his placement was, what it ended up being. But really fantastic when you spend more time on your blog content and you get that placement and you can knock your competitors off. So, but anyway, it's a great post. I recommend if you go over there. And of course, the wonderful Anne Handley, she's included, and she says process. It sounds a bit as much fun as organizing canned goods or scrubbing dirt from beets. But the truth is that writers who slow down in key areas and pay close attention to key details have more success. If you're not reading Anne's wonderful newsletter, by the way, Total Anarchy, she publishes it every 2 weeks. And this is how I heard about Andy's wonderful survey, through her newsletter. Yeah. So in other news, LinkedIn this week has launched LinkedIn Stories. And this is an interesting one. Most other social media platforms have got stories features. I know that I've been using Instagram a little more often and posting updates as regular as I can. But I've really craved a business way to do that and give business updates and updates from the job front. And so I'm delighted to see that LinkedIn has done this with their Stories product. And so that came out on the 24th. And really what it looks like here, the experience, if you go to your homepage on the mobile device and click on your picture, there's a little plus sign there. And that enables you to create either a picture or a video update. You can put stickers and things like that on there. Type your message into the interface. You can also @mention people too, which is kind of fun, but I would do that sparingly. I wouldn't @mention people that you don't know that well. But also they do a question of the day. Question of the day, you can't come up with your own question of the day today, and I'm hoping that they can expand the functionality down the road to make that more flexible, because I would love to do polls, question of the day, as particularly of business, and I think that would just be wonderful to have that feature set expanded. But this is what it looked like. You know, when you create a story, you basically take your picture, record your video, add comments to it, and then just click the story button there, and you're off to the races. So here are the limitations. You can only share, you can only accept comments and interactions on those stories from connections. So there were a few that were posted initially where people asked for replies, let me know how you're doing and things like that. If someone is following you and seeing that story, they can't reply to that. So just be aware that that's a limitation. There's no ability to link to external content right now. That's unfortunate, but that's a limitation. The content disappears in 24 hours, and as in other stories platforms, you would really want that. You don't want something that's going to be out there on the internet forever. So I think this is really fostering more freedom of sharing with people and sharing more insight on their life and their professional life in particular. You can also download them when you've created a story, and I've done that a couple of times just to kind of save them for posterity. But the viewer can't download the story. You can't see stories on a contact profile page. So there was one story that I wanted to go back and watch again, but I found it quite challenging to go back and find that content, and it wasn't readily obvious just by going to the person's profile. No archiving, and even for authors, I think these things really just kind of die on the vine when they're done. Now, let's talk a little bit about some of the ways that you can use stories in business. And there are a couple of suggestions I read in Forbes recently. Sharing Q&As with thought leaders. I mean, have you ever thought about maybe reaching out to someone who's in a leadership position in your business and ask them a few short Q&A questions? They can email those videos back to you, and when you prepare your story, you can say, I sat down with the head of our engineering department, and here's what he said to me when I asked him about environmental or socially responsible enhancements, or making our products more usable for the disabled. And you can get that Q&A going, and so it's you and it's a second person in your story. The clips are only 10 to 15 seconds long, so you would really need to have brief responses from the Q&A. Sharing customer testimonials. If you did a really good job for someone and they are enthusiastic about what you did with them, share the customer testimonial. Ask them to do a short video saying what a great job you did, and then you can get on your story and say, wow, I just had this wonderful engagement with my customer. Listen to what she had to say about working with me. So use stories strategically in your business. I think it's a wonderful thing. I really do. And I'm looking forward to seeing where LinkedIn takes the format. So that is all I've got today. This was a short one. I do appreciate you watching, and if you've got comments for me, please leave them. And also just click through to my blog. I'll leave a link to the show notes here, so you can click through. Hey, if you want to sign up for my newsletter, I'm creating a lot more content these days. Would love to keep in touch with you and hear how you are growing successful content in your business. Thanks very much, folks.